The following program is a Town of Colonie television production of the William K. Sanford Town Library.
It goes all my life's a circle, sunrise and sundown. The moon rolls through the nighttime till the daybreak comes around. And all my life's a circle, I can't tell you why. Seasons spinning round again, the years keep rolling by.
Good evening, I'm Joe Doolittle.
Good afternoon, I'm Kate Dudding.
And this is Story by Story.
Celebrating the human spirit. And
we are enthusiasts for stories and storytelling. You like that?
Enthusiasts.
Enthusiasts. The word enthusiast in the Old Greek, it means while the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, is with us.
Ooh, I like that.
You like that word? I love that word. And we'll get into some of the Holy Spirit as we get on with the day, but I thought would be enthusiasts for storytelling is one of the ways we'd introduce ourselves today.
Yay, rah-rah!
Yeah. And, you know, I've been having a good month, even though the weather, this is April we're doing this taping, it really has been bad.
It could be worse. We could have had more than one ice storm.
That's a
Things could always be worse. There's a story about that.
That's right. That's right. Well, I'll have to, I'll keep that in mind. But I really trust that by the time you folks are watching this show in May, that you have seen the Harbingers of Spring at your bird feeder, coming out of the ground of your flower beds. I hope the sun is shining and the forsythia is already gone. How about them apples?
Well, it should linger a little bit, but yes. Well, yes, indeed.
Linger would be good.
Yeah, but right now my forsythia is, you can see the buds, that they're all furled up, but they're there.
Now, one of the things we do is we kind of talk about storytelling and our own experiences for a little bit. Then we have some wonderful guests who are going to talk about a very particular component of our storytelling community, and we're pleased about that. But I usually ask Kate, I say, what's the most fun you've been having lately with storytelling?
Well, I'd have to say I gave my first program learning about Muslims. I created that CD over a 2.5-year period, and it was done a year ago. And this is the first time I've had the opportunity to present it to the Schenectady Interfaith Council.
Oh.
Community?
Community council, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it's a council.
Yeah.
Alliance? I don't know.
Yes.
A long-standing group. I mean, it goes back generations. Yeah,
right.
Good.
Yes. And so, and hopefully, and Joe's got me a booking coming up probably in the fall. And
well, just a word on that, because you know, excuse me, you don't look Muslim. How did the Muslim stories find you? Because
they crept up on me.
They crept up on
that one by one, I learned a little more and a little more, and you know, one of the ones that touches me most is about an American soldier who was from Pakistan, but came to this country when he was 8. And he told his family, the only way to show how much I love this country is to be in the U.S. Army. And his name was Mohsen Naqvi. He was a first lieutenant. And he served in Iraq as part of the U.S. Army Reserves, and then in Afghanistan. And unfortunately, he was killed when he was 26, just 3 months after he was married.
And he was raised in Colonie.
Well, he was raised near Newburgh.
Oh, okay.
His wife, now widow, it was from this area.
And
that's why they were married in the Al Fatima Mosque near the airport, the Albany airport. And he's buried in the Evergreen Cemetery on Central Avenue.
His parents, were they from Pakistan?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So he was raised here.
He was raised from the time he was 8.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, we've just segued to our guest. That was Suman Joshi, who is one of the founders and principals of a program that Kate and I have come to admire greatly, and many in this area admire greatly, the Interfaith Story Circle. And Ann Snyder is here, and she's another founding member of this group. And we're going to talk a little about that group because in many respects, Kate's being found by these stories that creep up on her probably started in the Interfaith Story Circle session, where we were introduced to people of faiths other than our own. And the linchpin for this group is an incredibly wonderful person named Gert Johnson, who was the health educator at the Bishop Gibbons Notre Dame School. Religious. Well, she also did religion, but she did both, I think.
And she did sex education.
And she was kind of like the chaplain in that school, which is interesting for a lay woman in a parochial school, but nevertheless, her spirit shines through in almost every encounter. Her wonderful way of reflecting the love of the Great One in our lives is just ever present. And I would, if she was here, I would have to say that to her and she would blush a little, but it's true. And so the group has been going almost 25 years. This is the 25th year.
It'll be the 25th anniversary.
And so I kind of would like, maybe Suman, you and Ann could kind of introduce yourselves to people, and then we could go and talk a little bit more about the Interfaith Story Circle, and then we'd love a story.
Okay.
All right. Welcome to Story by Story.
Thank you. As you say, I'm Suman Joshi. You said it right.
I did.
Yeah. And we have been here forever. As soon as we got married, we came here. And our sons were raised here. Now they are almost, I would say, middle-aged men, both of them. They wouldn't like that, to call them middle-aged.
Middle-aged men.
Yeah.
Notice she didn't call them grown-ups. Just call them middle-aged men.
So we have been here long enough, and as you said, winter, I'm going to start right there, because this year we are feeling it more, because every year we go to India, every year for a long time now. So we are in touch with India also. And this year, my husband hasn't been keeping that well, so we did not go to India during the winter. So when you said winter, I mean, it was, but I thoroughly enjoyed the winter, because we have, I wanted to tell you that all of you are complaining, but I'm saying I just loving the snow, and because we haven't been here in the last 10 years during the winter. So this, I just realized this change of season is so important.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Well, we'll accept your affirmation of winter.
Yes.
We won't agree with you, but we'll accept it.
It is beautiful if you don't have to go anywhere.
That's true.
That is true, and that is true. Yeah, and I'm retired. I worked with many years with children with special ed as well as their parents. So counseling is my main passion and so profession. So there was not a single day that I went to Wildwood's programs, and there wasn't a single day I felt like I didn't want to go.
Wow.
Yeah, it was amazing journey. That could be another story though, yeah. So Interfaith group, Gert Johnson, as you said, she's the one, I would say she's the founder. Lot of, all credit I will give it to her. She called me a few years ago, must be 20,
Just a
even
few.
to few years. Yeah. And she said, and she said during the winter, and she said, we need someone to tell, we want to expand our program, and we need someone to tell the stories, something about Hindu faith, and some stories about it. So that was the winter festival, I think. And I said, I come from a country where stories are told all the time. The whole country tells the story. Grandma is the most important person in that culture because telling the stories. So, and even in, there are many programs like, they are called Kirtan, That means long storytelling sessions, about 2 hours every day for 7 days.
Wow.
So I was kind of jumped on that opportunity actually when she said, would you tell a story? And I said, I'm not professional, but I have many stories. I have grown up with stories. So that's how my journey with Gert started. And I told a story on that day. And after that, I kept telling stories on panels and everything. So she said, how you have come such a long way. Did you take any classes or anything? How did you learn to tell so many stories? I said, I watched all of you. Yeah, and something I got from those stories. So Story Circle, really interfaith Story Circle, that has given personally to me a lot. I like the non-judgmental nature of it. Because you are not criticizing, you are not making comments, and even it shows, instead of applauding, we go this way.
Right.
And I thought that was beautiful, because you are not making noise, we are just going in yourself and kind of saying, oh, what did I get out of this? Because it distracts you when you...
And to me, there's a warmth to it. There's a physical
Yes.
warmth, and there's also it's a little like a moving namaste.
Yes. Oh, yeah, a little like that too.
It was
Yeah.
one of the things that just jumped into my mind was a picture of Kalafama Osman, who's a young man who's been on this show. He graduated from SUNY. He's teaching these days, but he's looking to go to law school. He was at the New England Storytelling Festival as a presenter, and at the beginning of his program, he kind of said, "I'm going to tell you stories, but you don't have to applaud. What I want you to do is," and he made that concept and introduced it at this convention. And I was sitting there. I said, "Son of a gun! Isn't that a good bit?"
I always say the story should be the loudest thing in the room.
Oh, good for you, Ann. Good for you. The story should be the loudest thing in the room.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Storytellers are used to, if the session is being signed, and at conventions and festivals, they often are, American Sign Language, that this is the way to applaud in American Sign Language. And so having another one for storytellers, I think, is less of a jump than for most people.
Yeah, I like this.
I
too.
kind of like
yeah,
this too.
I
I could do that.
I'd like to do that. I see.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you could go like,
I know.
Sign language is not, it's very expressive.
So I grew up on stories, and the story should be the loudest thing in the room. And let's just hear a little bit from Ann Snyder, and we'll come back to both of you.
Yeah.
Well, my name is Ann Snyder, and actually the first time I went to the Interfaith Story Circle, my friend Nancy Payne brought me.
Oh.
And I said to Nancy, well, I'm not going to tell. Well, I got to the story circle, and I think the theme was forgiveness. And I don't know, stories come up in your person, and they demand to be told. And so I wound up telling, and everybody, I guess, from what I understand from Gertie, was going, who is she? How can, is she a storyteller? She must be a storyteller.
Yeah, it wasn't. Who is she? That
No.
It was.
No,
who
but
is
who
this
is this
wonderful
wonderful
storyteller?
Thank you
that just,
so much.
That just showed up on our
It was
doorstep.
a bubble up. It was.
I'm so glad I'm here. So, then I guess, and Gert has always encouraged. I mean, Gert insisted that I was a storyteller. And I didn't necessarily feel like a storyteller. I grew up in an Irish family, and you sit around the table and there's always stories. Usually the stories we tell are about each other. Do you remember when Uncle so-and-so or Aunt so-and-so or whatever? So storytelling is always part of but our stories that we told were usually personal stories. Stories of experience within the family. So I've been involved for a long time. I wouldn't call myself a founder, but
A sturdy supporter once you found out about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
once
a
I was
strong supporter.
I was hooked.
Yes.
And I really find that often the stories I tell are the stories that I need to hear, that I need to remember, that the wisdom that comes from that story or from other stories that are shared is often the wisdom I need to hear at that moment.
Now, I remember I think it was the first time the Interfaith Story Circle met at the Hindu temple.
Hindu temple.
And
yes.
you gave us a tour of the temple, and then we went to this other building for the circle.
Yeah.
I remember brown for the building. I don't know. Anyways, but when you explained that Hindus believe in one God, but there are many manifestations.
Yes.
That made so much sense to me. If there is, now I'm kind of like, I was raised Catholic, but I'm kind of don't have a faith tradition that I'm currently following. But I'm not, sometimes to whom it may, if anyone's listening,
Holy One, wherever you are.
if you are, yeah. Anyways, but to me, if there is a supreme being, our intellect is not going to be able to really understand.
Right.
And this idea of these multiple manifestations, that we can get a little inkling here and there, and not the whole at all, but just the tiny tips, like you can see just the tips of the tree, and you really don't see the limbs and the branches and the root, just that. So I remember that so clearly. I went, oh, sure. That's brilliant.
It's so simple, right? And we make it so complicated. All of us, we say it is supreme being, but then we don't stop there. If we stop there, all of us will be fine. But then we say Jesus is the only one. Then we say Allah is the only one. I mean, first we say we are. These are all manifestations. Then say, if you say that's the supreme being, then we agree with you. So we get particular about that. So it's hard. It has given, the more I heard about the stories, the more I got anchored in my own religion in a nice way. So I could assimilate all of those religions.
I think Gert's founding principle was, the more people of faith hear each other's stories, the more they will realize how much they have in common. And these differences, these labels, well, it's more than a label, but will take less importance.
Yes.
And will go, for instance, like I found out at the 20th anniversary of the Interfaith Story Circle that many religions have a golden rule.
Yes.
It's not just
the same one.
And it's the same. I mean,
almost.
The wording is, like the Muslim. One of the ways the Muslim one is expressed is, none of you truly believes until you wish for your brother what you wish for yourself.
All right.
Pretty much, that's it.
Others.
Yeah.
And that is like recognize God in each other. It's the same idea, golden rule. Once you do that, And just, if you want me to talk a little bit about that day, Hindu temple.
Sure. Right.
Not exactly that day, but it is around Interfaith Story Group. Before, Gert did not have Hindus or Buddhist as part of Interfaith Story Group.
Mostly various flavors of Christians and Jews. Pretty much.
And then Muslims came, and then Hindus came. So it started expanding, and at the same time, I had to say, all of us as a part of this group, we are coordinators in coordinating these programs each month. We became more open-minded. And we had some discussions, I still remember. Marni was very much part of that. All of you know Marni, great storyteller. And I always felt she was one of those people, she will try to listen and open your minds. Her mind was always open. Not that everyone would agree, But that's how we started growing up. And then it is not only Hindus, Muslims, Buddhists, and after that it was social justice, racism, all of that became part of that. And this, I don't know exactly, this community, gays and lesbian, what do you call
Right,
it?
LGBT.
LGBT. Also we included recently LGBT community.
voice, right?
Yeah, and I feel that that's this all, as America is growing, no comments.
Right.
So we are really growing and opening up,
Becoming more inclusive.
Yeah, more inclusive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That as it's been alluded to, sometimes the circle meets monthly, September to June.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's a topic that would be really based,
Yes.
Hindu stories.
Right.
But sometimes there are topics like forgiveness
Exactly.
or revelations
Right,
or a generic one. Or sometimes this year there's going to be a I'm sorry, I can't remember.
LGBT, I think.
Yeah.
LGBTQ.
LGBT.
Yes, LGBTQ.
Yeah.
There we go,
Yeah.
LGBTQ. In June.
Yeah.
And there was a social justice one at the beginning.
There
of
was
the
a social
season, I
justice
think?
at the beginning. There was the connection with the Quakers in Albany, who
Yeah.
had really
Yeah.
created a program called Stories for Racial Healing, which has kind of grown in a connection of some of the downtown Albany churches, and is still part of the Interfaith
Yeah,
Circle.
yeah.
And I think, like the golden rule, one of the things that's happened within the last 18 months with the circle, it seems, is the issue that each of the great faiths have some need to express a position on social
Right,
justice.
right.
And that's become expressed in several different ways. And I think that's the example. And as a matter of fact, it may be part of this 25th thing. We ought to get some press out about that, because I think that's really common ground. And it came really from the strategy of making sure that the circle was truly ecumenical.
Yeah, right.
And I think that that's again, I think that's good. I don't remember a conversation about weather. I just remember hearing, "Oh, we're going to be meeting at the Hindu temple." Isn't that neat? You know, I mean,
yeah,
so-
yeah. And just to add to that, I don't want to forget that big thing is also teens and kids.
Right.
It became intergeneration, and as in Hindu temple we did once,
Right.
myself and next generation who was 16-year-old. We did these 3 stories, if you remember, intergeneration stories. And children at the well, I mean, you should do another program for that. But that
We
is-
have
Yeah,
done.
we could-
Oh, you have
we
done
should
that,
bring
so
we should
people
bring
know.
them back.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I think the other image I have is being in the fellowship hall at the Hindu temple, at one of the Children at the Well showcases, and there were all these different kids
Yes,
telling
yes.
stories, and I have to kind of go back and reflect on this. The other thing that's remarkable and nice about the gatherings is that there's a sense of the hospitality of whatever the faith community is, because you get welcomed into that community, whether it's at the Islamic Center, the Hindu
yes.
Temple, the First Reformed Church, and that in and of itself of practicing hospitality is an expression of faith and love. You know, I mean, and I came in late at the Dominican Retreat House, just the last meeting. Was it the last meeting? I don't know. It was just recently, the last couple
Tent of
months.
Abraham.
And
Yes.
Tent of Abraham, and it was just, it was infectious as a hospitable place. So I think that's another wonderful attribute of it, and you don't feel real hospitality the way you do at one of those sessions. So let that be a remarkable point for you guys out there, because you should attend one of these.
Okay, so I suggest we can talk. We need to talk about Children at the Well, but let's put that aside. And we've been talking about the story. But Anne, would you share a story with us?
Yes, and the other thing I did want to add, though, there was a woman who came to our story circle, Pam Mertz, and Pam was a stutterer. And what grew out of her relationship with us is that she started a podcast with people all over the world, and asked them to tell their stories as stutterers.
Wow.
And it really, these people never expected anybody to ever ask them to speak about themselves. So that's one thing that's grown up. So many wonderful things have grown
Just
out of
one
it.
thing.
Just one thing, right.
Yeah, the most they had expected was tolerance.
Yes.
Most of the stories that I tell are personal stories.
Yes.
I think somebody once said that I've learned everything I need to know in kindergarten. And I'm beginning to think there might be some wisdom in that. I remember I was probably 5, maybe turning 6 and going to first grade. And when I grew up, all of the children in the summer took naps. Everybody took a nap. Well, I lobbied for a very long time and asked my mother, please, I'm going to school, I'm a big girl, I shouldn't have to take a nap. Well, finally I wore my mother down, and one day my mother said, Anne, you don't have to take a nap. I was thrilled. I put on my best dress-up clothes, one of my grandmother's dresses, and it was navy blue with white in it. And I found the big pearls that I had that somebody had given me, and earrings, and a lovely hat with a feather, and gloves, of course, and high heels, and a purse. And I was ready. I looked wonderful. I was thrilled with me. I was a big girl, and I didn't have to take a nap. And I went outside, and I went out in the driveway, and I stood there. And I think for the first time in my life, I heard a plane go over. It was very quiet outside. Everybody else was in taking a nap. There was nobody to see me and how wonderful I was and how grown up I was. I think that's the day I learned you can lobby for something you think is really cool, and you might even get it. But maybe when you get it, it isn't that great. Now, I do not remember ever asking my mother if I could not take a nap again. So I have a feeling that I learned my lesson on that day, at least one of them.
Wonderful.
Wonderful story.
Oh, yes. Yes, I want this, I need this. Huh?
I just want you to know that as you were telling that story, and I was thinking not about when I was a kid taking a nap, I was thinking about when I'm an old fart taking a nap. And the code for that is if I'm going to take a nap, I say to my wife, I say, Gay, I think I'm going to go sit in my chair.
Yeah.
And that's what I do. I go sit in my chair and the code is also that she nudges me in about 20 minutes and asks me if I want to get up or can she get me the blanket.
That's nice.
I know you. Your name is Bob.
Yeah, there you go. You want to get up? Because there's a thing about a short nap, and then there's a thing about a long nap. So that was, and that's a good example because as you're listening to that kind of story, I wasn't necessarily a young kid dressed up with pearls, but I
But
did
that would
there.
have been all right, too.
Yeah.
But I've been there, and and when you listen to the stories, you're again being a kid. You're listening to a conversation with your mother. It's real time, and it builds on the memory because we remember your story, and we remember all those other associations, and that's what makes storytelling kind of special for people.
My mother loved this picture of me. I mean, she loved when I did it, and then she kept this picture of me that one day I decided to dress myself. Now, it was clearly before I had started school. I had bangs, and then I had long hair. And once I started school, I got a pixie cut because my mother didn't have time to fuss with the long
I had
hair
Kibasi
anymore.
curls.
Oh,
I used
very
to tie
nice.
him up in rags, your hair.
Oh yeah. No, we didn't do that. Mine was. These are purchased curls. They're my hair, but it's a permanent. But I have very straight hair, and we just let it be straight. But I decided I was going to pick out my clothes that day, and I picked out a very plain T-shirt kind of to wear, and then over that I put my corduroy overalls, but they had little ruffles, corduroy ruffles on the shoulder. They weren't hand-me-downs from my brother. No, these were my overalls. And it was plaid, and then a little string of pearls.
Wow.
So
Yes,
yes,
yeah.
picking
I
out my
have the
clothes
pearls.
with the pearls. So it was really big to wear pearls if you were in the 50s. Yeah.
40s.
40s. Oh.
Yeah.
Overalls and pearls.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
that was the combination that caught my mother's attention and she found so amusing.
Now, was there a photograph of this?
There was. I think I probably do have a copy of it. It's very clear, and I was very happy. She sat me down on the stairs, going to the upstairs, and she took a picture of me, and because I was so happy, and she was enjoying how happy I was with this. An outfit that she wouldn't have chosen for me.
Yeah.
You had
That-
the style, though, with the pearl.
Yes.
That somehow reminds me, it is, I have many stories of kids because I work with them, and especially, quote unquote, my love was autism, artistic kids. So they are so special to me. I mean, everybody is special, I know, but they were unique and special. So one of the kids, I mean, there are all kind of gradation of autism, right? So one of the kids, he would say, when you said that first do it and then tell, something like that, don't ask for permission.
Yes.
One of the kids would always say that to us, that I already did it. It is easier to say forgive me rather than asking permission. Coming from artistic kid. And whenever something happened there around us, we always went to him. Did you do it? Because you never ask. So
We have a grandson who's just on the border of being autistic, and he's being mainstreamed in school. He's in the second grade, and we were talking on the phone, and Brian said, "Hey, Sammy wants to say something to you." So we had the phone on speaker, and Sammy gets on. He says, "I don't love you anymore." And I looked at Gay, and I looked back at the phone, and then Brian comes on and says, "Gee whiz, I didn't see that one coming." So they are special.
They're very
and then
special.
the next time he visited, this kind of remained, but he did come right into the kitchen and look at us very sheepishly, and then he looked right at us and says, "I do love you very much." And it was just perfect. But he knew he'd stepped over the line, and something else was going on. But I'll never forget that phone call as long as I live.
yeah,
So, coming attractions.
Coming attractions. Just before that, again, stories are generative. What we've just shared is a range of emotions, and yes, enthusiasm for the very nature of a personal story.
yeah.
Coming attractions.
Coming attractions. Dun, 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 dun. Starting on May 1st. Oh my goodness, look who we have here. Joe Doolittle is going to be at First Tuesday's Tales and Stuff. Performing, the topic is stories of Mayday, Mayday, Mayday.
Well, it's a story about the 1st of May. It's stories about Mayday calling for aid. Mayday. That's the French for Mayday. And then it's also some old Druidic stuff. So, and that's an open mic, so people can come and tell or read. We let people read. We don't really let people read stories at our circle meetings. Sing a song, play an instrument, and it's fun. It's right in the old stockade. Lawrence the Indian is out in front. There's coffee and dessert. Good little place to stop by. Hope to see you.
Is May Day because there are a lot of things happen, different things happen during the May.
It's
Is
also
that-
on the 1st of May. The date is the 1st of May, so that's kind of,
Oh, okay, okay.
When I was in Catholic High, we used to march for Mary.
yeah, there's a lot of things go on.
But there's a pagan maypole that
Yeah, we didn't do the
didn't do the
maypole.
and because I think it's halfway between. Oh dear, it's halfway to the summer solstice. So it's spring. It's
spring
halfway
and summer.
between the beginning of spring and the beginning of summer,
And in
I
the old-
believe.
And in the old Irish Celtic community, it's Suman, which is the festival of
So then, I am doing a free program up at the Summit at Saratoga. It's a adult senior residence set of apartments just east of Wilton Mall. I'll be doing it on behalf of the Academy for Lifelong Learning on Friday, May 4th at 1:30, and my topic is the kindness of strangers.
Yes,
And I'll be able to include a couple of my stories about Muslims because that's true. And if you'd like to come, you're more than welcome to. It's free, but you need to register. It's a nice big room, but it is a finite number of seats. And so you need to register with Vera, vera.casson@esc.edu. The Academy for Lifelong Learning is under the umbrella of the Empire State College. And so there's that. And then we come to the 25th anniversary celebration of the Interfaith
Yes.
Story Circle. And the whole year has been the power of story 2. And this is the power of the Interfaith Story Circle. And that will be on Wednesday, May 9th, starting at 7 o'clock at the Hubbard Interfaith Sanctuary on Madison Avenue in Albany, part of the St. Rose campus. There will be celebratory refreshments. I had to get my emphasis right.
Right.
And it's free and open to the public. You do not have to call ahead and tell us you're coming. But if you have questions, you can call Ann Snyder.
There you go.
Or you can email info@withourvoice.org. Withourvoice.org is the parent organization, and there are 2 programs under it: Interfaith Story Circle, which we've been speaking about, and Children at the Well, which we will be speaking about.
And that's also a website, right?
Yes, withourvoice.org is the website, and to get directly to Interfaith Story, it's withourvoice.org/IFSC, Interfaith Story Circle, all lowercase letters. So, that's happening in Albany. Happening up in Saratoga Springs that same night is the Saratoga Storytelling Open Mic, 7 to 9. It alternates between Cafe Lena and Woodlawn Commons, which is part of the Wesley Complex for the older people. I was going to say elderly, but we're not elderly.
I'm not.
no.
Speak for yourself.
Yes. And so Joanna Martin will be the featured teller. She'll have about a half an hour to tell stories. But 2 people will come to the open mic and tell stories beforehand, and then 4 or 5 afterwards.
And that's at Cafe Lena.
Right. And it has a modest fee of $5.
And Cafe Lena, for those of you who haven't been there recently, is completely renovated, and it's just a more delightful place to be and socialize and listen and just be present.
It still feels like the old Cafe Lena. They maintained the brick wall and the Cafe Lena, but it's got a wonderful sound system. It's got lights. It's a big rectangle. They moved the kitchen elsewhere, so it's bigger than it was.
It's got better chairs.
Yes. So it's really don't go to Interfaith Story Circle on May 9th.
Oh.
But if you're up in the Saratoga area, maybe you wouldn't want to come down to Albany.
Okay.
So, but Cafe Lena is worth the trip no matter what they're doing. Okay, and then we have Shawnee Evenings, the second Friday of the month at the Irish American Heritage Museum on Broadway in Albany, just a block or 2 east of State Street. On May 11th, Marnie Gillard will be there with Lawson, which is a musical duo, with stories of spring magic.
Wow.
And so that again is a modest fee, and
a great venue, and the board of directors of the museum make sure that we have Irish soda bread and gold Irish butter as our intermission treat. So it's kind of special.
Where is that going to be?
May 11th.
May 11th.
Friday, May 11th.
May 11th.
2 days after.
But what is the venue?
It's right on Broadway, across from the Empire, the SUNY Plaza.
Oh, okay.
Just past the bus station.
Oh, okay.
The Irish American
Yeah.
Heritage Museum. So
okay.
it's like a storefront, and it goes back.
Yeah.
It is a storefront.
It is a storefront.
Yeah.
It's an old brownstone.
Yeah. And then the last thing that I know about, but I'll ask you if you know of anything more, because sometimes you do, is our next Story Circle meeting. Now, this is the plain vanilla Story Circle, not the Interfaith Story Circle. The Story Circle Guild, if you will, where we come together to share stories under development. And you can get feedback. On the open mic, maybe people afterwards will tell you something, but this is specifically people can come with a story they've been working on, and they can ask for feedback. If they don't want feedback, that's fine too. Sometimes you just want to tell it to some faces as opposed to your dog. I mean, your dog is fine too. But sometimes people go, was it clear who was when the mother was talking and the daughter was talking, or this was okay. Now you've heard the story. My intention was this. Is that what you got? So it's a wonderful place to work on stories, and some of the people there make helpful comments. They never go, that was so boring, can't you do something? We all understand this is a creation, and we're trying to be helpful. So Tuesday, May 15th, right here in Colonie Town Library from 6 to 8. And this is no reading. This isn't the writers group. But listeners are welcomed.
And if you wanted to get a little taste of storytelling, listeners, viewers, this is a good place to do it. So.
Yes. And if you can't get out, or if you're flipping the TV and go, there's nothing on I want to watch, go to our YouTube channel. You can get to it by storycircle@proctors.org, our main website, and click on YouTube, and there are over 200 stories available on demand.
Wow.
And our YouTube channel now has over 100 followers. Ooh.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. And so this show, I'm now putting it on hold, the whole show, on our YouTube channel, and then I indicate where the stories start. So you can click on the beginning of the show and listen to it all, or if you just want to hear Anne's story about when she did her first day without a nap, and we'll have to talk about what that title is. I'll have it set up so you can click on something and you'll start in the middle of that whole thing. So that's all I know about events in May. You have anything else?
I can't think of anything else, but that's quite a full plate of great storytelling. So we commend that to you, and I have to commend Kate, because a lot of the things that go on with that website and getting these stories up there is all Kate. So thank you, Kate Dudding, for being the most cheerful geek we know. There you go.
Yes.
I love using my geek power for storytelling. It's like I think that both halves of my brain work.
Both halves of my brain work. There's another line we could use again. I think both halves of my brain work.
So I've got this very geeky, logical side, and then I have this very creative other side. But using this very geekiness for something as wonderful as storytelling.
Both of you are really good as professionals. I heard both of you.
Thank you. We
and got some pointers.
Right.
Oh
yeah.
Well, that's what I did. I would go around and to see who was doing what and how.
Yes.
Not to steal the stories, to learn from their techniques.
Right.
Well, I think in the beginning, I didn't start out necessarily telling personal stories. I was learning stories, but then I realized that my place really is in the personal story.
But you also tell some biblical stories.
Yes, I do.
And you become
I have.
as the first person with a bit of, oh, the costume has come back. You still like to dress up.
Yeah,
no
that's
pearls,
true.
no pearls.
Unless it fits. But just if you just share just a tiny bit of that.
Well, at one time at my church, I actually I presented myself as St. Elizabeth, and when Mary, the Blessed Mother, and her met for the first time. And it was an interesting way to, they read the story first of Mary, and then I kind of spoke to the people, and I simply said, these women, God came into their life and shook them up, and they need somebody to talk to. So I went back to the credence table, I took off my glasses and put a scarf over my head, and I became Elizabeth. And I told them I was so glad they were there because, I shared with Mary, but I needed somebody else to kind of talk to about what had happened. And it was an interesting experience. And I almost really felt like Elizabeth, which was like she took over the...
Boy, I have to commend you. I think first-person storytelling.
I didn't know what I was doing.
Well,
It's the
I think
best part.
it's hard to do because
your heart was, it was telling from your heart.
Yeah, exactly.
So I commend you for that, and I could see how you'd want to do it.
And I had the script.
You had the script.
It was it right there in the Bible. I didn't have to go looking for a script.
And I had the playwright was pretty good. Yeah, okay. I want to spend a little time, though, to go back on a little bit of kind of segue from that story. Children at the Well has been, I think, heroic in my estimation. I use that term but just for being able to bring together young minds and hearts, and consequently then all the other parts of those faith communities.
Should I tell my story, One Path to World Peace?
Well,
Because that gives an overview of the whole process.
It's a good story, and I'll set it up because Children at the Well had been going about 5 years, maybe, when this happened. And we had a gathering of New York State storytellers. And it was hosted in Schenectady, so we had time for an open mic, and we kind of comped these kids. We didn't charge them, right?
Okay, but before we get to that, that's the end of this story.
Okay.
So the beginning of the story is...
First story, I should have let her tell it. Sorry, kid. Sorry.
Well, the actual start of Children at the Well is Gert. I met Gert at the Plain Vanilla Story Circle, and she kept saying, "Oh, you should come to." It was then called Faith and Values, not Interfaith Story Circle. And I say, "I have the values. I really don't have the faith." And she said, "Oh, come anyway." And so I finally went and found there was a place for me.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, that and then she became my story buddy, that when I'm working on a new story, I'll tell it to her usually first, and she'll tell me things like, well, I was confused when you were telling this.
Very good at that.
Or, oh, I really liked this. So a very gentle guidance. I wouldn't even call it a critique. It's gentle guidance. And then I would tell, then if she had something that she wanted to talk about the Interfaith Story Circle, I would help her with I'd use my organizational skills or my logical mind to help her with whatever,
the
problem.
The left side of the brain.
Yeah, or whatever, whichever one. And so she'd been telling me that she wanted to get children involved.
Right.
And because if the children are involved, then the parents would come too.
Right.
And so she mentioned it again once. I said, I just got an email from the National Storytelling Network. And they have this award called the Brimstone Award for new projects that could be replicated other places. So if you want to do something involving a children's storytelling group, maybe you can get your initial funding from them. And so I helped Gerd and Paula Weiss do the preliminary proposal. They first wanted a preliminary proposal, and then if they liked it, then they asked the top few to do the full-blown proposal, which had finances and many more details. And then I didn't have much to do with that process at all. So I was sort of one of the midwives.
One of the midwives.
Children at the well.
Yeah, wow.
Well, which sounds like all these women are giving birth at once, but no. Anyways, so this is a story that I created about children at the well that explains them. Once there were 3 young men, a Jew, a Hindu, and a Muslim. Now this might sound like the beginning of a joke, but it's really the story of one path to world peace. But first we need to take a detour to the village of Helm. This is in the Jewish tradition. I am not from the Jewish tradition, so my isn't quite right. But according to Jewish tradition, everyone who lives in the village of Helm is a fool. Here's a story that will give you some insight into the people who live in Helm. One day, 2 men from Helm were outside walking together, and it started to rain. One said to the other, "Haven't you noticed it started to rain? Why don't you put up your umbrella?" "Oh, that won't make any difference. My umbrella has holes." "Then why did you bring it?" "I didn't think it was going to rain." So that's typical of a story from Helm. But now back to our 3 young men, the Jew, the Hindu, and the Muslim. They met when they were participating in Children at the Well, Youth Storytellers for Peace and Understanding. For 10 years, teenagers have met every Sunday and learned how to tell stories from their own faith traditions. So it's not just like Interfaith Story Circle is not religious 101, religious traditions from around the world. That's not the focus of Children at the Well. It's learning to tell stories from your own faith tradition. Of course, when everyone's doing that, they're hearing stories from everyone else's faith traditions too. The end of the program each year is a performance. I wish you could have. Some of you have been with me. Everyone here, actually, in the studio, except for Greg, has been with us. Each year, it's in a different house of worship. Before the performances, the families come in and they're bringing food for the potluck afterwards, and they're beautiful to smell as well as to look at. Vegetarian, so that nobody's religious culinary issues have to be dealt with. But people still write down what are the ingredients just in case. Then the storytelling starts. The Jewish young man, Ben, got up and tells a story from Helm. That's his specialty.
Oh, it is.
And that's why we took that detour, so you knew what that was about. Then Rhythm, the Hindu young man, got up and told a humorous story from his faith tradition. Both of these young men are brilliant mimics, and the different voices they use just make their stories even more delightful. Now, Kalafala, the Muslim young man, usually has a solemn expression on his face, but when he smiles, his whole face lights up.
Yes.
Now, he told a personal story about his journey from graduating from 8th grade in the Muslim school in Colonie and going to high school at Niskayuna High School, and how he learned about that greater community, and they learned about his and his community. Then there's the potluck. But what I love most about these gatherings, more than the stories, more than the food, is watching these kids together. Before and after, they just glom together, and they're talking to each other. And did you? I forgot something, but I put it in, and yeah, you did. You did that the best I've ever seen. And they've clearly become friends.
Yeah.
Kids from different areas in the capital district, different traditions, social-economic, all different. They've become friends because of Children at the Well. And that's what Children at the Well, what that metaphor is, that the wells in villages were where people came together. And then, but I ran into these three young men at the New York State Storytellers Gathering, and we were at a swap at the end of the day. Joe was facilitating it. And at a swap, somebody's, just like at the Interfaith Story Circle, somebody goes, oh, I'll start, and they tell a story. And then somebody says, often, like we've been doing, well, that reminds me of, and they tell another story. But occasionally, there's no one who volunteers to tell the next story. That happened in this swap, and Joe said to those three young men, because of course they were sitting together, they were the only people under 55 there probably.
There might have been two people in their 30s.
Yeah. So Joe turned to them and said, do any of you have a story that you want to share? And Rhythm the Hindu turned to Ben the Jewish young man and said, tell them a story from Helm. And Kalafala, the Muslim young man, smiled and said, yes, tell them a story from Helm. So Ben did, and we all laughed. I remember thinking that day, how many places in the world today would you see a Jew, a Hindu, and a Muslim sitting together as friends and sharing stories? And then I had this other thought. Whoever would have guessed that one path to world peace goes straight through the village of Helm?
Yeah. Yeah. See, I just want to, these three young men
Right.
and more, I know some
Right.
of them, they are in college, some
Yes.
of them now.
Some of them
And they are doing such a good work and taking it further. So how it helps, so starting as kids, so what they got from these story circles is they're giving it to the whole world, as you said, this peace path. And each one of them, I think, is a leader in their community,
Yes.
college
Yeah,
community.
I know that Kalafala was the president of the Islamic
Student
organization at SUNY Albany. And I think
Aditya has published a book.
Yes.
He graduated
John
from-
Locke?
Yeah.
John Locke.
Right, has his own
Yeah.
photography.
Well, but he also did that
film.
film on Stepping Towards the Line.
Right.
About another Muslim young
Right.
man and the
Omar.
difficulty he had
Right.
after 9/11. And he won, what was it, the Peace on Earth
Right, right.
in Chicago
Yes,
for
yes.
that
Yeah.
documentary.
Right, so if you go to childrenattthewell.org, you can find out about the film, you can find out more about Children at the Well. This year there is no class, they're taking time to... a book has just been, I don't know if it's actually, you could get a copy of the physical book yet, but about Children at the Well and how people could do their own, variations of it. And that's about to be published, and that also information will be on the website when it becomes available. But you can always, in the upper right corner, I think, of any of these websites, with our voice or that, you can click and to stay in touch, and you can be put on their mailing list. And you will not get inundated with stuff, but it's just to stay in touch. So we only have a minute, Joe.
Wow.
Didn't that go fast?
Yeah, really
Well,
fast.
our enthusiasm has been very rich. That's what that says. Because I've had so many more remembrances. Those are stories in the making of my time with the Interfaith Story Circle and with Children at the Well. I once had these three guys show up at my church, and we did this program together. And I took them out to the Bomber's burrito thing because they hit me up for lunch. And I have never had as much fun with 3 people in my life as having Bomber's burrito.
Today was pretty close, though.
It was pretty close. Suman and you. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right on. Right on.
And we hope you had a good time, too. But now it's time to say goodbye. And thank you for joining us, and we hope you'll come back again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It goes all my life's a circle, sunrise and sundown. The moon rolls through the nighttime till the daybreak comes around. And all my life's a circle, but I can't tell you why. Seasons spinning round,